Federal power is on the street, a man is on the ground, and critics say the government loses control while people watch a killing in real time. According to analysts, this shooting in Minneapolis has shocked the city because video appears to show Alex Pretti holding a phone, not a gun, as federal agents move in and open fire. Many are now asking, how does a federal operation aimed at immigration enforcement end with a 37-year-old ICU nurse lying dead in the street, surrounded by agents who, according to witnesses, never even checked his pulse before counting his bullet wounds? Critics say this is not just one bad moment, but a brutal example of what happens when federal power comes into a neighborhood and no one seems accountable. Many are asking a simple, angry question. If the videos are real, if the witness accounts are real, and if the timeline is real, how did this man end up dead while the people with the guns walk away with a press release? According to federal officials, this all starts as part of a larger immigration crackdown in Minneapolis, with federal immigration officers and Border Patrol agents deployed on city streets in the middle of winter. DHS officials say agents were carrying out a lawful operation when, they claim, an armed man approached them and forced them to respond. Documents show the Department of Homeland Security statement describes agents trying to disarm a man with a handgun who, they say, resisted violently and posed a serious threat. But this is where things change. Multiple videos, analyzed by major news organizations, appear to tell a very different story. According to reports, footage from several angles shows Alex Pretti standing in the street, holding up his phone, apparently recording what was happening as federal agents detained someone nearby. Bystander videos cited by journalists show no visible gun in his hands as he films, even as agents shout, push bystanders back, and use pepper spray to control the scene. Analysts say that in the critical seconds before the shooting, the videos appear to capture a struggle, agents surrounding Pretti, and one officer taking what looks like a gun from him or from the scuffle. CNN's Review, for example, reports that a federal immigration officer appears to remove a gun from Pretti just before shots are fired, suggesting that when bullets start flying, the weapon may no longer even be in his hands. A separate timeline analysis notes that in less than 5 seconds, 10 shots ring out while agents have him prone on the ground. According to witnesses, once Pretti is down, he does not move. A doctor who says they watched from a nearby apartment has sworn in court papers that agents focused on his wounds instead of basic life-saving steps, claiming they saw no attempt to check for a pulse or do CPR before others intervened. Local reports identify Pretti as a 37-year-old ICU nurse and legal gun owner with a permit to carry, a person used to saving lives, now dying on a frozen street in front of neighbors. At almost the same moment, the official narrative begins to harden. DHS leaders insist agents tried to disarm an armed man who resisted and forced them to fire in self-defense. Critics say the videos and sworn witness declarations raise a more disturbing possibility, that a man who may already have been disarmed, pinned down, and surrounded was shot multiple times by those sworn to uphold the law. What most people don't realize is how close this looks to daily life. This didn't happen in some war zone or secret base. It happened on a city street where people live, walk, take their kids to school, and go to work. According to analysts, the message many residents are hearing is that federal power can arrive without warning, flood a neighborhood with guns and tactical gear, and leave behind a body and a confusing story. Many are now asking, if a nurse, a neighbor, someone filming with a phone can end up dead during a federal operation, what does that mean for everyone else watching from their windows? Critics warn this is only the beginning of the fear because this shooting comes on the heels of another fatal federal encounter in Minneapolis, creating a pattern of death and protest in the same city. Families are seeing images of federal agents on their streets, clouds of tear gas, and crowds running from flashbangs, and they are wondering if they or their children could be the next ones in the wrong place at the wrong time. According to civil rights groups, this is not just about one man, one agent, or one frozen morning. It is about what happens when federal immigration enforcement and border agencies bring battlefield tactics into neighborhoods where people are just trying to live. The numbers don't lie. Each time there is a high-profile killing like this, protests grow, trust collapses, and communities retreat into fear and anger. This didn't happen overnight. Advocates say it is the result of years of aggressive policing, expanded federal powers, and political leaders sending more agents into cities while offering little transparency when something goes horribly wrong. Here is the core conflict, and it repeats again and again. Leadership decisions, real-world fallout, people suffer. First, a decision. According to reports, the Trump administration has pushed a major immigration crackdown, sending more federal immigration officers and Border Patrol agents into cities like Minneapolis, promising order and control. DHS leaders frame these deployments as necessary, tough, and justified, describing dangerous suspects and life-or-death threats against agents. Then, immediate fallout. On a cold Minneapolis street, those decisions turn into heavily armed agents confronting residents, grabbing people, using pepper spray, and triggering panic among protesters and bystanders. A man steps forward, filming with his phone. Within minutes, he is on the pavement with multiple gunshot wounds as neighbors scream and record. Next, worsening consequences. Protests explode through the city, even in frigid temperatures, as crowds march against ICE and federal agencies. Authorities respond with more force. Tear gas, flashbangs, lines of riot police, turning blocks of Minneapolis into scenes that critics say look more like a military occupation than a public safety operation. Residents inhale gas in their own homes, and a witness doctor later describes trembling and fleeing their apartment because they no longer feel safe in their own city. Finally, warnings of systemic collapse. According to analysts, each new killing deepens the belief that there is one system for armed federal officers and another for everyone else. Civil rights groups describe state-sanctioned terror and argue that trust in both local and federal government is crumbling. Critics say that when people see videos that appear to contradict official statements and nothing changes, they stop believing anything officials say. Then the loop repeats. Another decision. Send more agents, expand their mission, give them wide discretion during operations. Another fallout, another encounter, another confrontation, another terrified community watching weapons drawn on their street. Another worsening consequence, lawsuits, restraining orders from judges demanding that federal agencies stop destroying or altering evidence, and claims that state investigations are being obstructed. Another warning of systemic collapse. People who no longer trust that investigations are real, that evidence is safe, or that anyone in power is willing to hold shooters responsible. According to court filings, a Minnesota judge has already issued a temporary restraining order telling federal agencies not to destroy or change evidence related to this shooting. Many are now asking why a judge had to step in at all if everything was as clear-cut and justified as officials first said. Critics say that when the justice system has to rush to freeze evidence, it signals that someone, somewhere, may be more focused on protecting institutions than protecting the truth. Behind every frame of those videos is a human life, a family, a job, a community that suddenly loses someone. According to reports, Alex Pretti was not just a name on a press release. He was an ICU nurse, a job built around keeping people alive in their worst moments. Now, according to witnesses, the same kind of life-saving urgency he gave to others was nowhere to be found when he lay bleeding in the street surrounded by federal officers. This is where things change for ordinary people. When neighbors see one of their own killed this way, many no longer feel safe calling 911, cooperating with investigations, or even stepping outside when they see flashing lights. According to analysts, this fear does not just hurt feelings. It breaks the basic contract communities need with law enforcement to function at all. Crimes go unreported, witnesses stay silent, and people turn inward, convinced that speaking up could make them the next target in someone else's operation. Economically, the fallout spreads. Businesses in neighborhoods hit by protests and heavy policing often see customers stay away, deliveries disrupted, and property damaged. Civil unrest after police or federal shootings has historically cost cities millions in overtime, repairs, and lost work, and critics warn Minneapolis may be facing that same spiral again. According to civil rights advocates, the deeper cost is harder to measure. Young people who grow up believing that federal uniforms mean fear, not safety, and who carry that trauma into school, work, and family life. Socially, the divide grows wider. This didn't happen overnight. Years of clashes over immigration, policing, and federal power have set the stage. Supporters of aggressive enforcement say agents are risking their lives and need broad authority to respond fast in dangerous situations. Opponents see videos of a man pinned to the ground, shot multiple times, and left without obvious medical care, and they wonder what kind of danger justifies that. Critics say the signal sent by this shooting is clear. If federal agents believe you are in their way, filming their work, or questioning their tactics, your safety is not guaranteed. Many are now asking what protections, if any, exist for people who simply pull out a phone and press record when they see something they don't understand. According to analysts, what happened to Alex Pretti cannot be separated from leadership decisions at the highest levels of government. Federal immigration officers and Border Patrol agents did not simply appear in Minneapolis on their own. They were sent there as part of a broader plan to crack down on immigration and public dissent. Critics say those in charge, agency heads, cabinet officials, and the administration backing them, have built a system where aggressive tactics are rewarded, oversight is slow, and mistakes are explained away as the cost of doing business. Documents show federal officials quickly defended the shooting, emphasizing the alleged threat Pretti posed and framing the use of force as necessary and justified, even as multiple videos and witnesses painted a conflicting picture. When law enforcement experts who reviewed the footage publicly question whether the shooting appears justified, it raises hard questions about how fast leaders moved to lock in their official story. Many are now asking whether federal agencies are more invested in defending their operations than in examining what went wrong and changing their approach. This is where things change for the long term. According to civil rights organizations, this is now the second fatal federal shooting in Minneapolis in a short span, turning the city into a national symbol of what they call state-sanctioned terror. Each new death makes it harder for local leaders to convince residents that cooperation is safe and justice is possible. Critics warn this is only the beginning. If there are no serious consequences, no clear reforms, and no shift in tactics, communities may start to treat federal agents themselves as a threat to be avoided at all costs. According to analysts, long-term damage is already visible. Judges issuing emergency orders to preserve evidence, national media dissecting videos frame by frame, and residents testifying in court about their fear all point to a system straining under the weight of public distrust. Every time officials issue statements that appear out of step with what people see on their own screens, that distrust deepens. Again, the loop repeats. Leadership decisions, aggressive deployment and tactics, a death on the street, public outrage and legal action, official denials, and minimal change. According to critics, this pattern is not an accident. It is the predictable result of choosing force and fear over transparency and accountability. Right now, there is no clear resolution. Investigations are ongoing, videos are still being analyzed, lawsuits are in motion, and federal agencies are standing by their accounts even as witnesses and experts challenge them. According to reports, Pretti's family, neighbors, and supporters are demanding answers. But the gap between what the government says and what the videos appear to show has not been closed. Critics say this case will test whether any federal officer will face serious consequences when a man who may already have been disarmed and pinned to the ground ends up dead under a hail of bullets. Many are now asking whether the system is capable of admitting fault at all, or whether it will once again decide that the only life that truly mattered that day was the one holding the badge. This didn't happen overnight. Years of policy choices, crackdowns, expanded powers, and political rhetoric brought federal agents, protesters, and one ICU nurse to the same Minneapolis street at the same terrible moment. According to analysts, what happens next, how investigations unfold, how leaders respond, whether any reforms follow, will say more about the future of federal power in American cities than any speech or press release. So the question hangs in the cold air over Minneapolis, over every city where federal agents now patrol. When a man like Alex Pretti can die this way, on camera, in front of witnesses, and the people in charge insist it was all justified, what does that tell you about who is truly safe and who isn't?